Hey Bookaholics, this is Isabel and welcome to another video. So today is another installment in my Books of Love series that I'm doing for Valentine's Day. I will put my previous videos down in the description box and you can go check them out. But this video, I'm going to be talking about all my favorite tropes and my least favorite tropes, the ones that I hate to see in romance books. A trope really either makes me want to read a book or not want to read a book. So the five first tropes I'm going to be talking about are tropes that I love. Every time I hear that that is what this book involves, I'm invested, I'm interested, and I will most likely read it. The other five tropes I'm going to talk about are ones that I really don't like to see in romance books or really any novels in general. Tropes done well, it doesn't matter if I like them or not, if they're done well, I will enjoy them. So some of my favorite tropes here that I will go to, if it's not done well, I probably won't enjoy the book. And even like my least favorite tropes, maybe if I give the book a chance, it'll end up being one of my favorites because they just do it so well. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a book is bad if they have this trope in it. It just means that I am less likely to go towards this book if it has one of my least favorite tropes in it. I just want to talk about them today since this is my Valentine's Week series and tropes really make or break a book. So let's just get right into it. The first trope I want to talk about is hate to love trope. These ones are some of my favorites because they just have this certain element in the books that just make it so spicy. I don't know, it's like just the banter between the two characters when they hate each other is just so satisfying to read, and then as they slowly get to know each other, that feeling starts to change, and it's such a wonderful experience to just follow along as these characters start to hate each other and then eventually have feelings for each other. It's so satisfying, it's so lovely, and honestly, if this is part of the book, I will most likely be interested and I will most likely read it because it is my favorite, absolute favorite trope out of all of these. My next favorite trope is definitely fake relationship trope. So this one is also one of my favorites because it also has an element to it that makes it so, I don't know if the mysterious is quite the right word, but it's like has this element of knowing what's going to happen but wondering how it's going to get there and wondering what they're going to do as they're pretending to date, because it's such a fun concept that these two people who generally wouldn't date each other, wouldn't actually be interested in each other, but they both have something they need out of this relationship that they're faking, and then slowly they just get to know each other and start to fall in love. And it's just such a wonderful trope to follow because it's just so much fun. It's so much fun to just watch as they progressively get to know each other and fall in love when they're trying to pretend to date. So my next favorite trope is definitely friends to lovers. So this one is also very fun to read because usually you're following the friend who is pining after the other friend, and it's so fun to like experience this pining and this like adoration and the just love for this other character. It's fun. I also really love it just because they're friends first. They know each other, they know each other well, and they get along, and once that kind of moves towards love and romance, it's just a lovely kind of book to read, and it's just so much fun. My next trope is second chance trope. So this one is when they were a couple years ago and then they broke up, and then later on in the years they get back together and it works out that time. This one is lovely as well just because it follows as they are more mature and grown up. It doesn't work when they were younger or whenever they dated before because they just weren't working, but when they meet again and they see how grown up they are, they see how much they matured, and then they give their relationship another chance, it's just so hopeful and so wonderful, and it's just so nice. And my last favorite trope would definitely be the slow burn trope. This one is just, it doesn't instantly become anything romantic. They just kind of meet, they get to know each other, and then slowly that turns more romantic and slowly it turns to love. This one I find is mostly in like series, when you're kind of following a character as they kind of interact with the same character and then eventually become into a relationship. But it also can be in a novel when it just is following them as they meet and then slowly fall in love. I like those ones as well because it just feels more genuine and more realistic, you know? The tropes I hate. Now, for most books, these tropes will not do it for me. I will not pick up this novel. I will not do it because I just hate the trope, and I don't like usually what the message is when you're reading it. Because most of these tropes have a bit of a negative message, usually connected to these kinds of tropes. So that's usually why I don't like them, and usually they're just not done very well. The first trope that I absolutely hate is insta-love. This one can make or break a book for me, because if it's insta-love, I just get pulled out of the novel. I don't enjoy it as much and I don't believe it. Like, I know romance genre is not necessarily supposed to be believable. It's supposed to just be a fun time and enjoy it. But when it's insta-love, I really just get pulled out of it. And I really don't like it. An insta-love that really broke a book for me was definitely Everything by Nicola Yoon. This one had an insta-love. The main character didn't even meet this person. She was just watching her neighbor and just like fell in love with him without even actually meeting him. And then when they actually do meet, it's like instantaneously they're in love. And the message in this book was not very good. It was very harmful, I think. Next trope that I really can't stand. I did like it before, back in my teenage days when I didn't know any better, but now I don't. And that's the love triangle trope. One example that really was not good was Twilight. Definitely. Jacob and Edward, neither of them were good for Bella, but they just kind of were almost forcing her to choose one of them, and I really hated that. And I just really hated love triangles after that, especially once I actually learned, you know, what a healthy relationship would look like. Yeah, I don't really care for love triangles, and I haven't really come across a book that does it well, so I really don't like this trope. Next trope that I do not like is good girl falls in love with a bad boy. I could see how it could be done well in some aspects, but it has to be done in such a strategic and sensitive way, because if it's not done well, it can be very, very harmful. And one of these books that I read back in the day in my teenage years was Crash by Nicole Williams. This one was a trilogy. It followed the good girl who had wonderful grades, followed the rules, she did what her parents did, and then she met this bad boy. She pretty much just dropped everything after that. And that's what it seems to be so harmful about these tropes, is that usually the bad boy gets the girl into trouble, and not in a healthy way and not in like a productive way. It's usually disrupts her future, disrupts everything she's accomplished. And what is it for? A relationship that isn't all that healthy, because usually the bad boy ends up being very, very possessive and very, very confrontational and just not a very good person to be in a relationship with. So yeah, don't really care for these ones. Next one is forbidden love. So this trope is very well known through like a Romeo and Juliet-esque kind of novel. I can see the appeal of this kind of trope because it's kind of like a guilty pleasure. It's seeing a forbidden love that you would never actually do, but you're curious about like reading about it. One that I read, which I regret reading, is Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma, which is a book about incest, which it wasn't necessarily supposed to be a romantic book, which I appreciate that wasn't like the intention, but when I read it, that it just seemed like that was the intention, was just having like a scandal kind of novel, and I really didn't like that. Ways that it could be done well, possibly like the only ones that I could think of would be more LGBTQ books, which they wouldn't actually be forbidden. It would just be forbidden in the way of the character feeling like they couldn't go after what they wanted because their parents would disown them or something. That would be the closest I could see of it being like an okay trope to follow, but otherwise usually this involves betrayal and going against your family, and usually it's insta love. Then the last trope I have here that I really don't like is soulmates. Do I really have to say anything more? I do not believe that there is one person out there for each person. That just makes no sense. There's 7 billion people in the world. How is everyone supposed to have only one person? And another thing is that usually soulmates end up being insta love, and they end up being like so devoted to each other, and it ends up just being weird and gross, and I really just don't care for it. So yeah, this one I really do not believe, and I get thrown out of the book a lot if I'm reading something like this. So yeah, those are my 5 favorite tropes and my 5 least favorite tropes. So yeah, I'm hoping you guys enjoyed this. Let me know your favorite tropes and least favorite tropes down below. Let's have a discussion in the comment section, and I'll see you guys for another video. Bye!